Whew, all right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's NBA pre-lock show where we're gonna go game by game, talk through this slate. It's gonna be a big one. There's a not that much news, but there's enough where we're waiting on certain plays and calls, but we have enough news to be dangerous. Good to see everyone in the chat, y'all. Last night was tough. Not gonna lie, I'm not one to fake the funk and pretend like everything was great. It wasn't. It's per usual. We hit on some things. We're around field weight on Luca, like that was fine, but you just really need to be over on him and then sacrifice everything else. Was kind of the strategy there. So moving on, we'll look at today's slate. We'll get back on track. It's gonna be an interesting 8-gamer. The Cup Series is going on, which should keep things interesting for a lot of these teams, but it's also just a regular game, so they always still have something to play for. All right, we'll start off with the Knicks going up against the Hornets. I love seeing the Hornets on a slate. Y'all know that. Highest total on the slate. Spread is 6.5 points, so, hopefully the Hornets can find a way to keep this game close. For the Knicks, no new injury news outside of OG. He's been out for a couple games now, though. So, it just kind of keeps the interest level pretty high for all of the Knicks. Makes them viable. Matchup is soft here against the Hornets. I liked guys like Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart a bit more before I saw their price tags. $7K, $7,400 is just right. Is not they're not a bad play or anything like that. It's just hard to see them extremely exceeding value. So for me, whenever I go and get into these rough stretches, I really focus on kind of getting back to the basics. I get less cute outside of a few spots. That's just in my blood. I'm always going to be a little bit of a contrarian. But I really just try to go back to trusting the DS a bit more, going back to the sim model, and just keeping the fundamentals. So I'll still have a decent amount of mins, but usually I would have like a 5% min on Hart, a 5% min on Clarkson, and just trying to have exposure to guys I feel like have good upside. But instead, I'm just going to keep it to the guys I like a bit more and feel like have a decent floor and decent ceiling combination. So starting off, we have Karl Anthony Towns. I have a 25% min on him. Let's look a little bit closer at this. Looks like his ownership has gone down. No, I mean, I still like having a 25% min on him. Okay, his ownership just went, I refreshed it and it went up a little bit, 13%. I guess I'm okay with having 10% leverage here. I like playing bigs against the Hornets. Even though the Hornets are better at rebounding, they're still not great at defending against other talented bigs. I think Cat's in a great spot here. Brunson, I'm just matching the field with. I have a 15% min on him. He also has been good. He's a talented guard, but his ceiling, we haven't really seen it too much so far this season, and so I'm just a bit more lukewarm on him. So I prefer Cat over Brunson. But we'll have exposure to both. And I have a 5% min on Mikal Bridges because between him and Hart, I like the ownership difference we have here. I can get a little bit of leverage with a guy like Bridges. He hasn't been as efficient this year. Hart has actually been better, but in a softer matchup, that's kind of where I like to take some shots on guys like this. The exact same story with Mitchell Robinson. This is more of a sim model play, but his minutes are also starting to trend in the right direction, which means absolutely nothing with Mitchell Robinson. You can never trust him. But let's see. How much is he? He's 3,900. Look at the sim model. It likes him. 1.69% chance of hitting 8x tonight. I like that. There's other guys we'll get to who also stand out, but Mitchell Robinson was one that I also agreed with there. What's up, Solo? Zolo, good to see you, man. Uncle Cheese, I saw your comment earlier on the Tactics show. That was funny. Yeah, Zolo, that wouldn't surprise me. Good spot. And exactly. Yeah, Ball Hog. I just like his low ownership. I do think he's priced appropriately, but, I like the Knicks. When we look at like the true exposures, Knicks are showing up pretty much exactly where I have them with my mins. Yep. No one else is showing up. I don't think Hart's a bad play. He's viable there too. I just didn't get there. All right, other side of this game is a lot harder to look at. High total, but it's because of a soft matchup on for the Knicks. LaMelo, I have a 5% min on him because I like playing studs in these high total games, but the matchup's brutal. His minutes haven't really gotten to they've gotten a little bit better, but he just hasn't been as efficient while he's been out there. So we haven't seen a ceiling performance. 8,900 is a little low. He's usually in like the lower to 9K range. So 5% min on LaMelo. It's nothing special, just kind of matching field weight exposure, but he's just someone I don't want to not have exposure to in this game. Outside of that, there's two centers who project well, Diabate and Kalkbrenner. Both of them are fine. They're viable centers. If you're in that 4K range, you can look at them. Ultimately, there's just other centers I like a little bit more on this slate. They both have shown some signs of upside. I just think this is a really tough matchup for them, and I'm not trying to pick on the Knicks here. Konica Nipple. I've loved that kid. He's always viable for GPPs. Let's see. Knicks are weak against what? The Knicks are pretty good defensively everywhere, to be honest. So they don't really have a weak spot defensively. Next up, forwards. Yeah, position-wise. Let me see. I'll double check. Charlotte. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, I mean, they are slightly worse against the forwards, but they're still the 21st ranked defense against forwards. So, like, they're a top 10 defense in every category. But, yeah, 21st is, slightly better. Yeah, a lot of really good defensive teams will have a relatively high 3-point percentage. So you can always take a shot on that. It's a little bit more of a dart throw though, because you just never really know when those performances are going to come. And then usually it's from some random player. So not a bad approach. It's just usually not a shot I'll take. All right. Next up, we have the Bucks going up against the Heat. This was a game that was popping earlier, but it's kind of lost all excitement just because of other news we've gotten from other games. And Milwaukee is basically healthy. Giannis is questionable. This would be his first game back if he returns tonight. Y'all know I love playing guys against the Heat just because they play at such a fast pace. So, but the problem here is if Giannis comes back, everyone else is priced appropriately, or no, they're too expensive because they're priced like Giannis would be out. So they're not viable for me until we get that Giannis news. So I have a 10% min on Giannis because he's relatively low owned. Earlier, he was looking at 20, 25% ownership, and I was like, that's a fade spot. But now with his ownership falling, he's more viable for me. I don't love him because we don't really know what type of restrictions he'll have. He's been out for a week or two, but assuming we don't get any news around a minutes limit or anything like that, then I'll just keep a 10% min on him and ride the wave in a nice matchup. This gets really gross, but if Giannis ends up getting ruled out, I have some interest in Kyle Kuzma. I was digging a little bit deeper into his game logs and just trying to find a rhyme or reason towards when he has more ceiling performances. And it's in faster paced environments. The matchup doesn't really matter too much for him. It's just play fast. And that's what the Heat do. So it's scary, but I would have some interest in Kuzma if Giannis was out. But we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I think most people are assuming he'll play tonight. So we'll just keep that 10% min there if that's what happens. Madden, dad of 3, I do one unique. And yeah, happy early Thanksgiving. We did the Thanksgiving tactics show earlier. It's going to be an awesome NFL slate. I can't wait. But let's make this NBA one good too. I use one unique. Showtime. What's up, man? Let's see. For the Heat side of things, earlier, all these guys are questionable. We got the news that now pretty much all of them are probable. So, Andrew Wiggins is probable. Jaime Jaquez. Jovic, all these guys are now probable. So we're just kind of waiting and seeing what actually happens there. I'm assuming everyone's going to play. So if that's the case, no one is standing out for me with the Heat tonight, which has a lot to do with Tyler Hero coming back. I do like picking on the Bucks with guards. They're just not a great defensive team in general right now, but no one's standing out for me too much. I see Bam's getting some ownership. I get it. There's just other centers I like slightly more. So yeah, grosser game than I thought it would be, which is a little disappointing. All right. Next up, we have the Indiana Pacers going up against the Raptors. For the Pacers, they're basically healthy. Really, they're just kind of getting healthier with guys like McConnell and others who've been out, Mathurin, and they're just kind of seeing their minutes slowly but surely increase. Guys like Nesmith, Toppin, those guys have been out for a while, so that's not really new information. What you're going to see is we don't have a lot of strong value we can trust on this slate. And when that happens, you see some surprising names. And one of those guys is TJ McConnell. Last slate the Pacers are on, we saw TJ McConnell hit 22 minutes, which for his points per minute, his usage, he can break a slate with that kind of increase in minutes. At 3,600, even if he plays 17 minutes, he's still a solid value play on this slate. There's just more potential upside there because his minutes are looking like they're trending in the right direction. So I have a lot of TJ McConnell. Let's see. He's showing up in 50% of my lineups, and he's only showing up in 50 because I did put an exposure maximum on him. I'm capping him. I know I'm capping him. I can't go all in here. Even though it makes a little bit of sense in my head, I still have to limit how much exposure I'm going to have to these kind of risks. And so 50% cap on TJ McConnell. I'm still double the field. This is kind of similar to what we did with guys like Kispert, which, obviously would have been great to have 99% Kispert, but that wasn't what hurt me last night. 60, 50% was still fine. But it's more like hopefully what we did with Cam Whitmore, where we capped him and he sucked and he had a lot of ownership. So hopefully with TJ McConnell, we'll be able to play a nice balance here where if he goes off, we're still having really nice leverage. And then if he sucks, our whole night isn't ruined because he's in 99% of our lineups. So yeah, I capped him too at 50. And then I put a 10% min on Siakam. The tough part for them are their games just aren't staying close enough where he has to keep the gas pedal down the entire game. Matchup against the Raptors, a little bit softer. This game still has the widest spread on the slate, though. But let me see. I might consider going a little bit lower on Siakam. Look a little bit closer at some things. Yeah, I think a 5% min is fine. 10 is probably a little bit too much for a guy that we probably won't have to have on this slate. I just like his potential upside. He doesn't project well or anything like that, so that's the kind of guy I need to make sure shows up a little bit more. And then Isaiah Jackson is someone else I like a decent amount. He's someone I thought about writing up as a leverage play, but ended up just wanting to be a little bit closer to field weight exposure. 3,900, like I said, we don't have a lot of great value, so I like to kind of mix and match these guys in to my lineups who I feel like can exceed value if they see their regular run of minutes, but they really can bust a slate if they see slightly more, even if it's just like 2 or 3 minutes. And Jackson and TJ McConnell both fall in that bucket for me. There's another value play down here, Jay Huff. And Jay Huff, he has shown some signs of life this season where he can definitely have upside. Sim Model likes Jay Huff. Just wanted to show you all that 8.36% in the 8X column. Ultimately, I just don't like Jay Huff. I just need to see a little bit more from him. This matchup doesn't stand out too much for me. I could be wrong, which is exactly why I'm talking about it. I just want to make sure y'all have the same information I do. Sim Model likes him, but I can't get on board. Yeah, we'll get to Kogi. The truth of the matter is, it's just the small forward position is pretty weak, along with not a lot of value. And so he's one of those guys who fits into that spot and the power forward spot. So he's just going to show up a little bit more. Oh, Steven, you're right. This is a revenge narrative. I forgot about that. I like that. Yeah, that helps. That helps. Uh, remember me? Tavia has said, already talked about this game, but do you think Melo stunts Knipple coming back? No, Melo's been back for a little bit now, and Khan has still had some strong performances, which has been surprising, but I think that's why things are a little tense in Charlotte right now. But you would think, you would think. I think at some point we'll see um, the guys revert a little bit closer to the median. So it wouldn't shock me if Knipple starts to slow down a little. And that's why I'm having a 5% min on Melo. I do think he'll have a big game coming out here soon. But it is just kind of like taking a shot because you just know what's going to happen. You just don't know when. All right. Let me get focused again. All right. We've touched on the Pacers. They're fine. Let's see who else is showing up. Maybe naturally. TJ, we put a cap on. Siakam. And then Isaiah, we put him in on. And then Nimbard is not showing up in one lineup. Nimbard's fine. He just neither him or Mathurin stood out too much for me on this slate. But trusting the DS, if he shows up, I'm not going to X him out or anything like that. And if you're interested in using the optimizer, things of that sort, link is in the description. Feel free to use promo code BOB for a 10% discount. But if you want the really good discount, we have a Black Friday deal going on right now, BF 2025, for multiple discount ranges. Put the code in and you'll be able to see. It's usually like 25 to 50%, depending on which plan you're looking at. So for the Raptors tonight, RJ Barrett is still out, which is what's making all of these guys more interesting. Last time out, we saw Brandon Ingram have a big game. But today, Brandon Ingram's the chalkiest of these guys. Yes, Craig, this show is free, but if you want access to the Discord and the optimizer and everything that we're actually doing, you have to join and click the link in the description for that. But the membership is not free. Sorry to disappoint you there, friend. But all right, I like the Raptors tonight. Pacers have been a team that we've been able to pick on pretty much all year. Ingram being the chalkiest of the three just terrifies me. I'm never a big Brandon Ingram guy in general, but especially when he's chalk, that just does not compute for me. I have to limit my risk. Once again, we'll still be over the field if he goes off. It's just if he sucks, it's not going to ruin our night. So, okay, Craig, Nezzy, I knew it was you, but when you asked the question, I was like, wait, maybe the username's not who I think it is. But I have a 20% min on Scotty Barnes. He's the guy who sees the highest increase in usage. He's the one who I usually prefer in spots like this. He is more expensive than Ingram, which is a part of why you're seeing the ownership boost to Ingram. Ingram is still showing up in 50% of my lines. He's my fifth highest owned player right now. So there's not like an extreme fade or anything. I'm just limiting my risk. If you feel better about Ingram, you can not put that cap on him. For me, I just like to make sure my night isn't ruined early on. But I've always felt like that go big or go home approach is something that I used to do a lot more of. So I can respect it. Emmanuel Quickly, I am pretty indifferent on. I do think he has some upside in this spot. But the DS likes him. Oh, or it did like him. Looks like he fell a little bit. Now I only have 10% exposure to him. Let's see. I do like Quickly enough where I'm willing to put a min on him. So I'll put a 20% min there. Jakob Poeltl's one of the few bigs I'm willing to prioritize on this slate at 5,600. We know he has 40+ point upside. He's shown it to us already this season. And honestly, I don't think he's seeing enough ownership. So I like having 7% leverage here on a guy like Jakob Poeltl. When he's below 6K, he's a lot easier for me to click on. Mamu is just... I feel like whenever I don't play him, he goes off and it pisses me off. But he doesn't play enough minutes at this price tag with some of the other value we have on this slate for me to prioritize him. There's just too many games. Sheed is showing up in 16% of my lineups. I like Jamal Sheed, or is it Shed? I always forget. But and the sim model likes him too. So he's someone I didn't have to put him in on. I just like that he's showing up. Well, Jamal Shed, 8.31% in the 8x column. So he's another one of those value guys I just like having in the mix. I'm keeping an eye out on those exposures because I am willing to put him in on him if he falls below like 15%. And then Walter, you could kind of twist my arm into, but I didn't get there on this slate. Josh Hart is starting. Ew, that tracks. Robinson was a bit banged up. That doesn't really change too much for me. I still think Josh Hart's a very viable play. I'm just not going to force exposure to him at 7K. I think ideally, if you do like a raw run, he'll probably show up for you naturally in probably like 5 to 10% of your lineups. And that's probably ideal. Next up, I want to like this game. This Timberwolves going up against the Thunder game. But the Timberwolves, they're not it. I think a lot of people, they see this Thunder versus Timberwolves game. They're like, finally, a game the Thunder won't blow up everybody. And at first I thought, SGA is questionable. So this game actually could end up being a little bit closer. The spread is still pretty wide at 9.5 points. So for now, I'm just going to assume SGA is going to play. I want to like Minnesota here. And the idea of taking a shot on a low-owned Ant sounds great. The Thunder are just so good. If SGA gets ruled out, I'm automatically forcing exposure to Ant, Randall, guys who have higher usage rates here. But if SGA plays and that spread stays as wide as it is, I just can't do it. Right? Zolo, like the 9.5 spread, I feel like I'm seeing something very differently than the way the books are, but I trust the books more than I trust my gut response. So because of that, I'm just taking a shot on Jaden McDaniels. I have a 5% min on him at 5,700. He just plays a ton of minutes. And again, we are lacking value. I like having those mid-range guys who can go off, even in tough matchups, just having some exposure to those type of plays. He's not super expensive like an Ant or Julius Randle, who are still like solid plays if you see this game staying closer like I did originally. But trusting the books on it, I just too scared to pull the trigger on it. I am more willing to play the favorites here, like guys like SGA, Chet. I like having some exposure to, assuming that they're the resources that are utilized the most to take out the Timberwolves. But Minnesota's a good defensive team too. So what we're really looking for here for these guys to pop off is either SGA gets ruled out, then I like this game significantly more. Everyone and their mom is playing AJ Mitchell. Or this is just like a really close competitive game, and it kind of pushes the ceiling for some of the star performers from that perspective. At this point, I don't really see that, so I just have like a 5% min on SGA, 5% min on Chet, just getting some exposure to this game, and for those like weird one-off scenarios, and I have a 3% min on Caruso, primarily because, again, we're lacking value, so I'm trying to mix in some weird value. And he's one of those guys that sees minutes randomly in tough spots. And so this is a cup game. This will matter for both teams. It wouldn't shock me if he sees a little bit more run. He projects awfully, though. So definitely one of those getting too cute moments, more than likely. All right. Yep. And then that's pretty much exactly who's showing up for me. So sad. I want to like that game a lot more. And then this Memphis Pelicans game is kind of like the opposite. I didn't want to like this game as much as I ended up getting exposure to it, but these are just two god-awful defenses. For Memphis, there's not really any New injury news outside of the fact that Zach Edey is questionable, which does matter for guys like Landale and Aldama, but the rest of the guys have been out for a while now. What I like is just the soft matchup. It's a decent total at 235.5, close spread, 3.5 points. Pelicans don't play defense. So I have a 5% min on Jaren Jackson Jr. 7,800 just feels a little bit too cheap for him. We do need the game to stay close so he can see his full allotment of minutes. But if that happens, I think this could be a smash spot for him. So not someone I'll have like 10, 15% exposure to, but I like being over the field on JJJ tonight. Let's see who else. We have, I have a 2% min on Zach Edey if he plays. Again, Pelicans are not a great defensive team. He's priced okay at 6,200. I just feel like he was going a little bit under-owned, so I wanted to match the field on him. Vince Williams is another guy, has been really solid with Ja Morant out in a plus matchup. This price tag doesn't feel as expensive, so I wanted to match the field there. Cedric Howard shows up by himself. I never love Cedric Howard, but the interesting thing about like the Memphis team is they're volatile. And I think that's the important part. You don't really want them as core plays, but they're solid and okay lineup fillers because they're relatively cheap, especially once you get to like the Cedric Howard range. They see decent minutes, and if he gets hot, he can blow up a slate. So they're not guys you trust, but they're okay to have exposure to. So let's see. I don't have a min on Coward. And is he not showing up anymore? Okay, he's not. Looks like we're getting a few more Rockets and Suns than him now, which Cedric was honestly my least favorite of the group. I'm okay with that. I won't put him in on Cedric or on Coward, but I will keep the 5% on Vince, 2% on Edey. Jock Landale, I won't get to unless Zach Edey gets ruled out. Kim Spencer, I like on this slate. He's someone I'm willing to mix into the value that I like being over the field on. I have a 10% min on Cam Spencer. He doesn't start. He comes off the bench, but leaves soft spots, faster pace. Well, the Pelicans don't really play that fast of a pace, but decent, good total. Like these are the type of game environments I like to target guys like Cam Spencer in. So 10% min there. And then Jalen Wells makes me a little nervous, but just again, another value guard that mixes things up. I like TJ McConnell, but I don't need 99% of him when there's other guards who are in comparable spots. And so that's why you'll see like in a lot of these games, that's my strategy. It's just kind of taking some shots on guys that I feel like have a lot of upside too. Oh boy, there we go. Damn. The world had to call me out. I was like, if Giannis was out, I don't think he's going to be out. I kind of like Kyle Kuzma, I guess I got to sit on it. Got to stand on my toes. I am going to play Kyle Kuzma tonight. We'll see what projections do, but I do like him. I was really hoping I didn't have to back that one up. That's tough. Okay. So yeah, I like Memphis more than most people, but still not going too crazy there because we know how volatile they can be. The side that's really exciting here is for the Pelicans. I can't even say this with like a serious face. Being high on these teams just is crazy. Herb Jones is out. Once again, we just like the soft matchup for the Pelicans. Zion Williamson, he's someone we know will be out there. They'll utilize him. So I have a 15% min on him. Trey Murphy makes sense to me. I just don't like him enough with Zion back to force exposure, but if he shows up naturally, I like it. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper. Derek Queen, I can't give up on the boy, man. I have a 15% min on Queen. His minutes are volatile. He's young. Coaches will get mad at him for making mistakes and random stuff like that, but his talent is something I'm willing to bet on. So I'll be over the field on Queen. Even if he doesn't start, I will keep this 15% min on him. I don't really care just because he does so much while he's out there, and he should start and he should see minutes. So I'm just not going to overthink it. Sadiq Bey is not a sexy play at all. But once again, the forward spot just isn't that strong, especially now if Giannis out. That really just takes out a foundation player there. So 20% min on Bay, just another guy who has shown upside, relatively cheap, mid-range value, who is seeing a lot of minutes and is in a really soft matchup. So I have a 20% min on him. Misi, I have a 2% min on. He will show signs of life every once in a blue moon. So 4,100, again, mixing value. Jose Alvarado has gotten hot here recently, which is why Fears hasn't been doing as well. Fears is also more expensive. So it's really impacted Fear's upside here recently when Alvarado gets hot. Alvarado won't stay hot. He'll cool off eventually. But for now, I'm willing to ride the wave of a 4K Alvarado when we're lacking value. So 5% min there. A little bit harder for me to pull the trigger on Fears. G2, we'll go back to the Bucks towards the end once we get through all these games. I want to see what projections do. I'm going to take the shot on Kuz. What's up, Moose? Appreciate you joining us. The biggest value of being a member on the YouTube site is really just the Saturday show that Kevin does. The membership, you do get more VIP access to all the tools and stuff. Jose, I see your question. I'll get to it towards the end. All right. Next up, we have the Rockets going up against the Warriors. For the Rockets, they are, of course, without Kevin Durant, and Steven Adams is still out as well. With Durant out, last time we saw Shepherd start, which, of course, is like a nice boost in usage for everybody because Kevin Durant takes a crap ton of shots. So everyone has more opportunities. Şengün is my priority here. I have a 20% min on him. I like playing bigs against the Warriors because they're just small. Even though they're tough, they're just small. And the Warriors have struggled against bigs all year. So 20% min there. I like the other Rockets. You can talk me into them, but I'm really just trusting the DS on it. Reed Shepherd is showing up in 66% of my lineups. The DS really likes him. I'm not going to overthink it or cap him. So he's going to show up a lot for me. Josh Okogie, I can't say the same thing about Okogie. He's a low points per minute guy, but he plays a lot of minutes. He can get hot. He can be a streaky shooter at times. So I am fine having exposure to him. Like I said, I don't think we have any great value on this slate, so I like having him in the mix. I capped him at 35%, so still over the field, but not as much leverage as even like TJ McConnell or other guys. Hard for me to trust Okogie in this spot, but we're kind of desperate. And then let's see who else shows up. So we have Reed Shepherd, we have Okogie, Şengün. Clint Capella shows up naturally. Capella is the stone minimum. We've seen him play in a couple of games now. Minutes are starting to ramp up. But when a guy like Capella is popping, it tells you a lot. We are desperate for value. I'm glad he's not showing up as a core play. He just can't be that for me. DS has him showing up in 20% of my lineups. Again, not going to overthink it. I understand that we're desperate, so I'm just going to let that happen as long as he doesn't show up too much. If he shows up more than like 30, 40, 50%, he's getting capped. I can't have him show up that much. But the matchup is soft. Wouldn't shock me if they want to utilize him a bit more in this matchup. So I like that he's showing up a little bit. Yeah, I probably wouldn't play Kuzma in 20 max, but I'll be tempted still. In these faster paced environments without Giannis, I like him. I hope he shows up in our runs naturally, honestly, just so I don't have to put him in. But we'll see. The Warriors side of things, I get. Like, you can take a shot on Curry or Butler if you really want to. That's a rant for another day. I just don't love this spot for them. They didn't stand out for me. Gun to my head, which one, Curry or Butler? I'll probably go Butler just because he's a little bit cheaper. But Curry's always viable. He's a shooter. Just not for me today. This Spurs team, of course, Victor Wembanyama is still out. We had Harper questionable, but he said he's going to play. This team they have a ton of guards, pretty deep rotations. Matchup against Portland isn't as soft as you would think. Nice total at 239.5. That's really what got me on just taking a 5% shot on a guy like Fox. We don't have great pay-up options, too many on this slate, so he has done well in the past in some of these tough spots when no one else is on him, so just wanted to make sure I had a little bit of exposure in my 150. And then no one else stood out. It was disappointing. Looks like Champagny is getting some ownership. Again, like, I understand it-ish. I just think we have guys who at least see more minutes, but he is a decent PPM guy. I didn't get there. And let me double check. There's no Spurs showing up. Yep. Only one is a little bit of De'Aaron Fox. The other side of this game is where things get more interesting for me. I've been saying it for a while. The Spurs just aren't a scary team defensively without Victor Wembanyama. Shaedon Sharpe is questionable, which is huge. Shaedon Sharpe being out is what's led to a lot of these huge games from Deni Avdija. If Shaedon sits, I feel a lot better about paying $9,500 for Deni Avdija. If he plays, I'm still going to keep the 25% min on Avdija. I'm just more nervous about it because the price tag seems ridiculous, but he's been worth it so far. So for now, I have a 25% min on Deni. I'm over the field, but obviously I'm not super confident in it. I have a 10% min on Shaedon Sharpe. If he plays tonight, his ownership will be lower than it should be. And again, in a pretty soft matchup against the Spurs, good total, favored. I like having exposure to Sharpe tonight. And honestly, a lot of these guys, like Jeremy Grant, the exact same story. I just feel like these guys are going a little overlooked. Clingan, I've liked all year. Disappointed me last time out. Or maybe he did well. I don't really remember, to be honest. But I just want to have exposure to him. I didn't have enough capacity at the center position to go over the field on Clingan. But I just put a 10% min so I can at least have some exposure. And let's see. Any other Blazers showing up? We have Deni, Clingan, Sharpe. Yeah, pretty much all the guys we just talked about. All right. Last game on the slate. We have the Suns going up against the Bucks. For the Suns, Grayson Allen is still out. That's really the only thing that matters here. Nice total, or okay total, 233.5. Decent spread at 4.5 points. Booker's been frustrating, y'all. I've been trying to find a really good reason for actually playing Booker tonight, besides the fact it's the hammer game. I have this 20% min on him, but I think I have to go lower. I'll just do a 15% min because there's not a lot of upside Booker shown for this price range at 9,200. I'm going to keep the 15% min just so I have exposure. But really, it's been the other guys on this team doing everything, and Booker's just been setting them all up. I'm even getting slightly over the field on Dylan Brooks, who I absolutely hate, but he's actually been a solid points per minute guy, taking shots, doing a lot of things for this team. So I have a 10% min on Brooks, 10% min on Gillespie. I think I like actually being a little bit closer to field weight. His ownership went up. 6,300 looks wild, but again, they've been good. This team has been significantly better than everyone thought they were going to be. So they're just a team I want exposure to when they're going up against an actual bad team in the Kings. So 15% min on Colin. Mark Williams is showing up in every line if you let him. He is only 5,700. He's been a really good points per minute play so far this season. Good spot without Sabonis on the other side. They should be able to utilize Mark Williams a lot. I never love a chalky Mark Williams. A lot of that comes from PTSD and trauma from when he was a Hornets player. So I did cap him at 80%. I understand if you don't put that cap on him. I just couldn't have him having a complete snowflake. I wanted to make sure I could mix in some other centers. He's still a core play. I still have a shit ton. I just had to make that small caveat for myself. Jordan Goodwin, 5,400, another small forward you just can't feel great about. But He plays a lot. He has some upside. I have a 10% min on him, just kind of adding him into the mix because a lot of other optimizers from other sites are putting him in. So I just don't want to not have any. But I don't hate that ours isn't putting him in lineups because he's a hard guy to trust. But in this hammer game, I want exposure to these guys that are seeing a lot of ownership. And then Royce O'Neal is a little cheap, 5,100, has 30, 40 point upside. He's not consistent, but when he gets going and in softer matchups, he's a bit more viable. I did still cap him at 60. I tried 40 originally because I've never been the biggest Royce O'Neal guy, especially when he's super high owned. But on this slate, just because the forward spot is a little lacking if you're not paying up for guys like Barnes and Towns and Avdia and Şengün, he was a cheap viable forward option in a lot of lineups. And so when I understood how things were getting built, I was willing to allow him to go to 60%, but still not my favorite player or guy I'm like running towards. And so, yeah, that's the Suns. Next side of this game is significantly grosser. The Kings are just bad everywhere. Sabonis is out, which helps things a bit, keeps the floor relatively solid for like Westbrook, DeRozan, even Murray. But I'm really just waiting on the Dennis Schroeder news. If Dennis Schroeder gets ruled out, I feel a lot better about taking shots on guys like Malik Monk. I might even be a little bit more interested in Russell Westbrook. But for now, I just have a 10% min on Monk. Just wanting some exposure to this late game, giving me a few more options in late swap if that's what I have to do on this slate. Then I have a 5% min on Precious Achiuwa, and that's really just me getting a little too cute. With Sabonis out, we know how explosive Achiuwa can be when he sees minutes. And I do still think the Suns front court isn't that great, and I want to take a shot at it, and I'm going to do that with Precious. So we'll see what happens there. You love Booker? Yeah, that's the thing. I want him to be low owned because he hasn't been good. And so that's why I'm like, I still have exposure. It's just the ownership freaks me out. Yeah, I agree. He's just too cheap. He's just too cheap. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we're looking at the Bucks situation before we wrap up here. Only a few minutes left. Damn. Okay, looks like Cole Anthony's going to pop for us a lot more. No one likes Kyle Kuzma. I am going to put a 10% min on Kyle Kuzma. Just because the research I was doing earlier, faster pace. Doesn't mean it will work. It's definitely a dart throw shot. There's some other changes. Miles Turner sees a nice boost without Giannis. He's not too crazy. And again, this is a game I want to target, so I like these guys. Rollins is still expensive, but I like playing guards against the Bucks, so 15% min there. Bobby Portis has been playing well, better, well, strong. I will put a 20% min on him, and then Cole Anthony should show up for us a bit more. And then we'll run this. This is like the old days when we're running really close to lock. He does hate Kuzma, but Kuzma also sucks. So he deserves all hate he gets. All right, let's see what we get here with this run. What is the NBA channel doing? I just looked down at my phone for half a second. And y'all are wadding today. All right. Okay, we have Mark Williams. Yeah, Cole Anthony shows up in one of my top 5 highest owned players now, which I'm fine with. So this is pretty much exactly what I'm going to run with. I don't plan on making any more changes. Everyone I have mins on is showing up the way I want them to, and we have some core plays there. Sweet. So I wish you all luck tonight. If you're not in the Discord, if you're not in Geeks channel yapping it up tomorrow during Thanksgiving, I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. Super thankful for everyone who's tuning in, even after a little bit of a bad run here. I appreciate the support still. We'll get back on track here soon, but either way, tomorrow's going to be freaking fantastic, and hopefully we can get some takedowns tonight. Good luck, everyone. we'll see you on Monday for this show because we don't do one on Friday with tactics. So good luck. Peace out.